So I'm a good example of somebody who's made huge mistakes.
Do you consider yourself successful?
Yes, I do. 4 kids and unemployed.
What's stronger, love or hatred?
To keep myself busy, I just wrote a book.
The best way to learn is to see the mistakes, but not the successful cases. So, Michael, thank you very much again for having this conversation with me, for having this podcast with me. That means a lot. As always, I do not provide an intro to my guests because I ask them to do this instead of me. So, from your perspective, what are the most important aspects of yourself?
Oh, I'm not good about talking about myself. Um, so I work at a company called AI 21 Labs, which is an artificial intelligence Gen AI company based out of Israel. I joined about 2 years ago. It's a very exciting space technologically. There's a lot of momentum, a lot of competition. But I would say the core thing are the people that I get to work with and the team that we assembled here.
And what do you enjoy mostly in your work?
It's a good question. I'll go back maybe a little bit of history. I've been working now for many years. I started my career in venture capital, and I spent about 12 or 13 years in venture capital from an analyst all the way to a senior managing partner. And I always felt that I was somewhat on the sidelines of the where business was happening. So I made a transition to working for startups or growth startups in the software space. And what I enjoy is finding the gaps or the solutions for customers using technology. Working very closely with the engineering and the product team to deliver a solution, and being at the front lines of it, being engaged with the customers and with the engineers back and forth is what I enjoy most.
And you've mentioned that you had, yes, a very long story, and I've made a research before our interview. And yes, you've got a very significant background. But what would be your advice for people who are just at the beginning of their career, like my generation?
Yeah, I mean that's so I have children of your generation, and I need to I don't need to, but I'd like to give them some kind of guidance. I'll give you my perspective. So I spent the first probably 15 years of my career focusing on myself because I thought that was the best way for me to make progress. And as I evolved and matured, I believe that what makes me successful is to focus on the we, which means so there's me as an individual and
Yeah.
what I can contribute to myself. Then there's the organization that I work for and work with, the team and the people. Obviously, it's much larger and they have a larger impact on what happens. And then there's the industry that I work in, which has a lot of impact. And the more I can be connected with the organization and the market around me, I will be more successful. So I guess it's somewhat contradictory to still a young individual, but it's less about you. It's more about the impact that you make within an organization or a team.
But how to make it I will explain myself. How not to forget about yourself and your interests. How to balance it. The
You
we
can
and
val-
I.
It is important to follow. I don't like the word passion because passion is, it's the wrong word for the task. But people should try and follow something that they enjoy doing. That it doesn't 100% feel like work, and people say that a lot. Um, so there should be a correlation between what you're good at and what you're doing. So I would say put most of your effort on your strengths, 80% of your strengths and 20% on your weaknesses. You can't ignore the weaknesses, but if you over invest in your weaknesses, it's going to be very hard to succeed.
It's a very interesting point that you've mentioned about the correlation between weaknesses and strong sides. There are different theories on where should you invest more time in improving your weak sides or just to put more time on the strengths. And that's also a question for me because with a lot happening right now, especially in the tech, I think that it's super difficult to understand what is my thing. Like there are thousands of these opportunities, and you're trying this. I think that for older generation it was easier because there was less amount of jobs. Now it's like the ocean. How to understand, like how not to waste your time with the exploring.
So, I mean, let's look at it differently. I think every generation looks back and says, we had it harder. And their children look at it and they say, well, you had it easier. I have this discussion with my children all the time. So there is, as clearly, there is no truth. Yes, people in the past tended to stay in careers longer, but maybe they stayed because they had no opportunities. So, um, I would look at it differently. So, life expectancy today is 25% higher than it was 50 years ago. And it's going to go up another 25 to 50% over the next 20 years. So, you know, finding exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it between the age of 20, 30 doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of like, 20 to 30 is our teenage years in the terms of life expectancy. So it's good to stick things. It's good to try things again. But I would emphasize again that when you're looking for something to make you successful and feel that if you spend attention on the we and less on the I, it'll be less important on what you actually do because the we gives the impact.
I liked that you've mentioned that from 20 to 30, it's like you're teenagers, yes? What do you mean by that?
So when the life expectancy was 60, you were a teenager between the age of 12 and 16 or 17, and then you went to, if you were living abroad, you went to college. If you were initially, you went to the army, and then you got a degree, and you began your adult life. And it
Yeah.
was expected to in that period of your adult life to choose what you're going to do for the next period of time. But if life expectancy has gone up by 50%, then your teenage years should also be extended. So there's the pressure to make that decision between the age of 18 and 25 or 30. I think is something that society has created, but it's not relevant to the world today.
Does it mean that in this period you should be less worried about making mistakes?
So I'm a good example of somebody who's made huge mistakes throughout my career. Probably bigger mistakes later in my career than earlier in my career.
Wow.
Huge mistakes. Now, they can be very painful, and they can be very costly. But if they don't break they're incredible opportunity to grow and to change.
You've mentioned that you've made huge mistakes in your career. Could you elaborate a bit more? It's super interesting.
I mean, chosen the wrong position, had a business that wasn't successful, worked with people I shouldn't have worked before. So these are all like supposedly external things, but in the end, they were all choices that I made, and I had to learn the hard way that they were, not necessarily beneficial. But again, when I look at it holistically, I actually gained from every single one of them.
And how did you understand? Like right now, you're saying that the first point was working at the wrong position. How did you understand it? That that's not the place for you.
Usually too late and in retrospect.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that that's a very common feeling that has not only my generation, but I think that lots of people under the age of 30, 40, and 50, like, yes, I'm working, I'm used to this place, but I have this feeling that something is wrong. But people, like, most of the time, they continue to work because of the money and other stuff. But what will be your advice, or what's your thoughts on that? Like, should you change the place if you feel that something is wrong? You have
I
this
mean, so
feeling.
feeling is just a feeling, right? You can, and feelings can be misleading. What I do recommend is to try and put some level of objectivity and try to fix it. So and writing is a good exercise. Another thing that which I learned is that when you're unsatisfied with one thing, often it's something else that's frustrating you that you're not dealing with. So,
Mhm.
for example, I mean, work is work. We're going to work the most of our adult lives, right? That's the reality. And I like to work. I actually love to work, but it's still work. You still have to do it every day, all day. So finding other things beyond work will help you, as a person, be so much more fulfilled when you have that one thing that you can do for yourself when work is not great, because it's never going to be great all the time.
I absolutely agree with you, and yes, because there are ups and downs every time, and you just have to sometimes change the focus. And it's good when you have like an interesting hobby. And speaking about you've mentioned that you have children my generation, my age. How do you balance it, the family and the work?
So, I mean, I'm obviously a lot more efficient than I was years ago because I have experience. Clearly, if you're gonna do something that's important to you, then putting in the effort is important. That I believe in. I believe in hard work.
What does for you hard work and efficiency, is it the equal?
Mm, no, not really. I mean, no. Another thing that's important is when you work to be working, and when you're not working, not to work. So it's very easy to be less productive at work, and it's even more taxing when you're not at work and you're thinking about work, but you're not doing anything. It's very draining mentally. So
Yeah.
knowing how to shut it down is important.
And Michael, what personally keeps you going when things get tough in life?
The we, the people,
Uh,
the people that I'm with. No, seriously, the people that I surround myself with, and having a collective goal to achieving something or getting something done.
but you mean from a work perspective, or from
Both,
uh, personal
both,
life as well?
both.
When you have a bad day, how do you refresh? What are you doing?
I I talk about it with people who I trust and who are and I can relate to for that topic if it's work or personal. I meditate. I try and do something that's takes my mind off it. If it's exercise or fun, because going over it in my head over and over again is never the solution, at least for me.
I also read on your LinkedIn, you've mentioned that I also write novels and short stories.
Yes.
Is it like your hobby? It's interesting. Like, have you ever been
It
published, or is just
it was
for fun?
published. So my book was published, self-published about 12 years ago. It was a bestseller on Amazon. And my stories have never been published. I haven't been doing it for quite a few years, unfortunately, just because I haven't. And we'll see. I'm cooking something now, but it's still in the ingredient stage. Um,
So we should be expecting sooner or later.
more in the later. But that's an example of it's an interesting story because I was at the age of 40 and change, 4 kids, and unemployed, completely unemployed. And what I decided to do, because I knew it would take time, instead of just waiting around for opportunities to happen, I worked on the opportunities, but I knew it would take time to find what I was looking for. I'm very selective. To keep myself busy, I just wrote a book.
Wow. I think that that must be a very difficult period in your life.
It could have been, it was, but it could have been a lot worse. Again, finding something to do that was effective and took my mind off it made it very significantly less because I was all absorbed in the writing process.
So you've been working in business, yes. Then you just stopped and decided to write a book, and then after 9 months, approximately a year, you decided to just jump into another job, or how did it happen? Why didn't you continue with writing?
Okay, so I didn't decide to stop work. Work decided to stop work for me. And then I decided that given I was unclear as to what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. So, and I couldn't solve it. I knew it wasn't going to get solved in a week or two. So I decided to invest my time in writing until I became clear as to what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it.
I think that's an amazing and super brave decision. I mean, wow, I admire such people, and I think that you should be super brave to do this. How did you understand that? Okay, I think that that's very mature
I was already
attitude.
mature. I was already in my 40s, so I was mature. I met with some people and I realized that what was being offered and what was around the table were things that I wasn't interested in and that I was still not over my previous experience. And therefore, I wasn't, whatever decision I would make would probably not be the right decision at the time. So I put it
Hmm.
aside. I said, okay, I'm not going to, I'm not going to focus on this now. I'm going to do something else and see where it takes me. The reason I
Wow.
didn't continue writing is that writing is extremely hard work. And it's working alone. And I'm a people's person. I can do it for a while, but I couldn't do it all the time.
You said that you're a people's person. What do you like in people?
Everything.
Okay, then another question. What annoys you in people?
I mean, a noise, and I don't blame people, but lack of authenticity or people who are overly self-centered.
Michael, you said that when we were talking about your work right now, you said that right now you're more efficient. Does it mean that, from your perspective, that efficiency comes with experience?
No, I mean, yes, it does, but I think I've met, you know, young people who just have a natural sense of things and they're very efficient at a young age, depending on the task. I'm a slow learner, so it took me a little bit longer.
And what would be your advice for people who are like also slow learners or just at different stages of their lives, like how to become effective?
Again, I think that writing things down and reflecting on them helps. Whereas running things through your mind endlessly is not helpful. Measurement, some form of self measurement is helpful, and also very important is how to be a good team member. Because if you're a good team member, other people will do their jobs better than you can do it for them, and you become more efficient.
But in order to do this, I think that you should really um, objectively estimate yourself. Like, this is my weak side, so I should delegate it. How to pick people, how to pick employees who will close all your disadvantages, who will
I
empower
mean,
you.
recruiting and hiring is one of the most difficult jobs in business. And I'm historically bad at it. I've gotten it wrong so many times because I'm a natural believer. I like to believe in people, so I don't want to
Okay.
see their weaknesses. It's not in my DNA to see them. So that's why having things structured and written down helps me.
It's super interesting that you mentioned that you really love people, but you've done lots of mistakes in recruiting. So
Mhm.
I thought that that should be like vice versa, because you really understand people, you know them, you see them, so you should be like 100% best shot for that.
No, I had a colleague of mine. He was actually an employee of mine, and then a colleague, and he has um, I would say that one of the worst people skills I've ever met. And he's the best recruiter I've ever met. The best recruiter because he knows how to break it down. Just yeah, he hires the perfect people for the perfect job every single time.
And what would you prefer? Let's consider two cases. There is a very smart and hardworking person in whom you believe, but he has like lack of expertise and so on. He's younger. On the other hand, you have a super experienced, I don't know, great person, great expert, and so on. But as a person, he's like not your type, absolutely, and you understand that for your company, he's not the best shot. Who would you pick? Who would you
Hmm.
choose?
So it's never binary. First of all, I do think that hiring very talented people, even if they don't have the exact job description, is a good idea because if they're quick learners, they whatever it is, people can learn quickly.
And speaking about work and relationships, do you have lots of friends from work?
Yes, I have a lot of good friends from work and from pretty much everywhere. Yeah,
Wow, how to, because I know lots of people who just do not believe in friendship at work because work is work, friendship is friendship. How to balance it, like to be still like good colleagues and to be friends.
I have no balance on that category.
But then how should it work? Like, of course, you will be less objective to people with whom you're in a very good relationship. So it's, have you ever like been
No,
burned because of
you can,
this?
no, you can. I mean, yeah, of course, yes, I've been burned. Um, Getting burned is one of my things. I think you can be a good. So if you're an authentic person, you can be good friends with somebody and also be very objective professionally. You can be very close to somebody personally, and you can fire them at the same time. That's just you, if you're a responsible executive, you have to be.
What will you never forgive?
I will never forgive not forgiving because if I don't forgive, I'm the one who suffers.
Um, yes, but in terms of the betrayal, so you've never had such cases in life.
I've had cases, but I've forgiven.
Does it mean that you're a very strong person?
No, no. It just means that, this is the way I chose to conduct myself. Some people can deal with anger and negative feelings and function extremely well, and they can be very very effective. I don't function well when I have those things, so I decide not to engage in them if I can.
Michael, what makes you happy?
What makes me happy? It's the little things. I'm a very much a family person, and I have a large family, and that's probably my primary thing. Working with others, so working with others makes me happy. Um, in different ways, um, and learning new things, being intellectually curious and getting excited about new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things. I like progress. I believe in progress.
That's why you're working at AI 21 Labs, I
Among
assume.
other things, yes.
From where do you get the inspiration?
From God.
Um, can you please elaborate a bit more?
No,
Sounds super spiritual.
um, no, I get my inspiration from wanting to be alive, and from enjoying it, and realizing that that growth never stops unless you decide it stops. There's unlimited ways to grow.
But how to, on the one hand, how to enjoy the life, but still be up to date, still like enjoy the progress and so on. Because I think that it's kind of difficult to always grow. It's painful. Let's face it.
So again, it doesn't have to be climbing a mountain. Um, you also need to accept that there are certain periods where it's the pace isn't the same. It's not as doesn't always feel as good. Yeah, growth can be painful.
Hmm.
So if you do it long enough, you also realize that pain is a temporary thing. it never lasts for too long.
You've mentioned that you've done lots of mistakes. You just mentioned the regrets. What was your biggest mistake in life?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really dwell there. Um, on my biggest mistake, I don't think there's one that I can say that was, 5 or 10 or 15%.
How to accept these mistakes? How to forgive yourself?
Well, I mean, if you don't, then you continue to suffer. And so, it's all work. Nothing comes for free.
Yeah.
Everything is work.
And what's your attitude toward feedbacks that your close people gives to you?
No, so there's my ego, which is my natural, like, I don't want to hear feedback or negative feedback, which is, just natural. But it's important. Um, it's important. I don't take criticism easily, but I do accept it over time.
And from your perspective, like when you're becoming wiser and more experienced, these feedbacks, is it becoming more difficult for you to accept it than when you were like back 20?
No, easier, much easier.
Why?
Because I have seen where I didn't listen, many times and I was wrong. I've seen more people make mistakes when they didn't listen. So, you become a little bit more open. At least I do, more open than I was.
I think that when you're becoming older, you're gaining on expertise, and that means that it's not you who should get the feedbacks. Like for lots of people, when they're like 40 plus, it's like you're younger than me, so you should get the feedback from me. How to remain perceptive over the years?
Yeah, I don't think there's, I actually think that getting feedback from younger people is really helpful because they're more current on the world and they're more perceptive. And, I learn a lot. The people I work with here most of them are much younger than I am. And for me, it's an incredible learning experience.
Isn't it stressful for you to work in a young team, younger than you?
I mean, stressful is not the right word. It has some challenges, but the benefits, at least for me, significantly outweigh the challenges.
Michael, what is success for you?
It depends when you ask me what period of life you would ask me what success is. Um, so success for me today, success is different from when I was 20 and 30. But for me, success today is to really try, not to try, to really enjoy spending my time and what I decide to spend my time on. So if I'm working and work is important to me, um, to enjoy, to think that I'm productive and growing and enjoying my work. So one, and the second, which is probably equally important, is to think that I am helping others be successful. That gives me huge pleasure.
Do you consider yourself successful right now?
Yes, I do. Yes, very much.
And you said that work is very important for you. What is that so important for you? Like, why is work important? What
Uh,
it gives to you?
I mean, it's so I like I said, I believe in growth.
Yeah.
And working in a business that I believe is positive, that's growing, I think has an impact. Work allows me to interact with a lot of different people in different arenas, internal and customers. And when something positive happens, I see that growth. And I'm moving the dial somewhere.
But for example, when you were writing a book, wasn't it a progress for you?
The end
So
was the process
a
itself
progress
was,
is just a
yeah. For
job.
that, at the time, that was progress too.
Do you have any regrets?
Many, no. Um, I mean, yes and no. Of course, I have. Yeah, I do. I don't have regrets. I have things that I wish hadn't occurred. But I don't really have regrets because I'm not able to see how I could have, how I would have made decisions differently at the time. So it's useless. It's a pointless exercise.
I understand that that might be a very personal story, but is there anything that you would like to share as one of your regrets?
My regrets are extremely personal, so I'll choose not to.
I got it. I got it. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not pushing here. It's very interesting, because we're all people. And that's the aim of my podcast. Because on LinkedIn and social media, we only see successful success. And basically that really you get this feeling of like always stressful because let's be honest, we're not perfect. We all make lots of mistakes. We hesitate. We're real people. But with all this mask of fancy success and
Success
fancy
is usually
jobs.
a culmination of many, many, many failures.
Yes, but that's the saddest part for me, that these failures, they are always behind the door. So what we see is just the successful stories. And that's not fair because the best way to learn is to see the mistakes, but not the successful cases. Michael, what are you afraid of, if there is any?
What am I afraid of? I mean, obviously, I'm afraid of death and disease. I am afraid of that it's not interesting anymore. That would be my biggest fear.
That it's not interesting anymore.
Yeah, the whole thing. That I just have no, just waking up and having nothing there to look forward to is probably my biggest fear.
But when you wake up, and you feel like, no, it's not worth doing that, how do you frankly speak to yourself, comparing advantages and disadvantages, and you just speak that there are more advantages? Which questions do you ask yourselves?
It's not the question.
Or
It's
yourself?
it's the belief that results come from work, not self work, whatever work. If you have a problem, if you work at it, it will be resolved.
So the only way to get out of the depression is to move.
Yes.
To overcome your fear, your sadness, and just to continue.
Yeah, and have faith.
And Michael, my very last question, which I ask all of my guests: what is your superpower?
My superpower is love.
Elaborate a bit more.
No, that my superpower is my my enjoyment from people.